Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Halo Okezone, bertemu kembali dengan saya Rahman Aswadika dalam acara spesial Okezone. Bersama saya adalah Duta Besar Rusia untuk Indonesia, Excellency Lyudmila Vorobieva. Selamat pagi.
Selamat pagi.
Thank you for your time to go in interview with us. I want to ask you a few questions regarding the issue of the Russia conflict in Ukraine and Russia and Indonesia bilateral relationships. For the first question, it's been 1.5 years since Russia launched a special military operation in Ukraine. Have the goals of the Russian Federation reached the goal for the SMO, and have the goal changed since then?
Well, yes, indeed, it's been 1.5 year, and the targets that Russia is planning to achieve by starting and conducting the special military operation was clearly identified by our president. And first of all is the demilitarization of Ukraine, denazification of Ukraine, and the most important thing, of course, is the liberation and protection of the people of Donbas area, which have been under attack from the Ukrainian army since 2014. And as we know, more than 14,000 people have been killed since that time in this area. So far, to a certain extent, of course, we have reached the goals. We are protecting these people. As you know, also there have been referendums in this region, and the people of this region have voted in favor of joining Russia. So now, in a sense, the goal has changed because we are protecting our own territory. As for the demilitarization, the goal would have been achieved if not for the assistance of Western countries, because without the West providing defense equipment and armaments to Ukraine, Ukraine would have already lost and the conflict would have been over. But as you know, the West is providing Ukrainian army with modern equipment. They're training Ukrainian soldiers and officers. So in fact, they're pouring oil into fire, and they're doing whatever they can to make this conflict last. Denazification, of course, it's a more it's a process. It cannot be achieved even by, even when the operation will be over. From my opinion, there should still be work to eliminate the Nazi ideology, racist ideology in itself from Ukraine. So we're progressing, and we don't have any doubts that all the targets will be achieved.
This is still regarding the special military operation, and as you said, the West is pouring this resource to Ukraine. And then since then, the conflict escalated more and more, and the nuclear weapon come into the conversation. And there's a rising concern about the use of nuclear weapon in Ukraine. Not in Ukraine, not only in Ukraine, all over the world. What do you think about that?
Well, actually, it's... Actually, it's very, the irony of it, the allegation that Russia is going to use nuclear weapons in Ukraine or wherever it comes from, a country, only country in the world that actually used nuclear weapons in Japan, and against just civil population, because there was in 1945, when it happened in August 1945, Japan was already defeated, and there was no military sense to use, or reason to use nuclear weapons against two peaceful cities, Nagasaki and Hiroshima. Still, the United States threw a nuclear bomb over the cities, and hundreds of thousands of people died. Also our president was very clear in saying that the only reason that Russia can use nuclear weapons is to defend or to prevent a real threat to Russia. That's the only reason, or that's the only case. And we don't try to to use it as a threat. And of course, we understand that nuclear conflict will be a suicide for the world. And we really hope that our so-called partners in the West and the United States understand that, and they don't conduct any provocation. So this kind of nuclear war will happen. We know what wars are. We don't have any intention to make this last, and God forbid, have a nuclear war. We want to protect ourselves.
Again, about the grain deal that's sponsored by Turkey, West is all saying that Russia hold the ransom for food supplies, and there's a lot of push for Russia to come back to the deal. What do you think has to fulfill to Russia to go back to the deal?
Well, again, there's a lot of lies from the Western side. On food security, there is open data that you can check, and you will see that in 2022, European Union has increased its import of grain by more than 100%, from 6 billion euros to more than 12 billion euros. On the other hand, their export of grain was not growing by this kind of pace, much lower. So what it means that the European Union has bought a lot of grain, including Ukraine, to stockpile it, and they are not in a rush to give this grain or sell this grain to the countries that really need it. And the prices now is not rising. So all this, noise about Russia using food as a weapon, also this is a total lie. And the motivation behind the grain deal was that not only for Russia, that not only Ukrainian grain and food products will be able to be exported, but also Russian. We committed to our obligation, and Ukrainian grain went to, most of it went to Europe. It didn't go to the developing or Africa, only like 3 to 5%. And again, Ukrainian grain accounts only for 5% of the whole grain turnover in the world. So it will not make a big difference actually, and it will not provoke any hunger among African countries. But West didn't fulfill its obligation towards Russia. They didn't facilitate the export of Russian grain to other countries. They didn't readmit some of our banks to the SWIFT system. They didn't provide insurance they prevented actually for insurance for Russian grain. So we kept our promise while the West didn't. So why should we be part of a deal that doesn't work for us? And our president recently, during the Eastern Economic Forum in Vladivostok, he said publicly that we are ready to resume the deal as soon as the West and Ukraine will commit to their obligation. So far, they don't.
Still in there's also a lot of push from initiatives from countries around the world, including Indonesia, to end the conflict in Ukraine, because the effect is felt everywhere. What do you think needed to end the conflict in Ukraine, and what can Indonesia do more to facilitate that?
Actually, the effect that is felt in the world is not from the conflict per se, but it's from the policies of the West, the sanctions, the disruption of logistic chains, etc., etc. It's not the military actions per se that bring any effect to the world. So, and we appreciate all the efforts by many countries, not only Indonesia, China, African countries that are friends in the world, that have made numerous peace initiatives and wanted to act as mediators. We appreciate that. We're very thankful to President Joko Widodo when he went last year to Kiev and Moscow. We appreciate the initiative of the Minister of Defense, Pak Prabowo Subianto. The problem is not a lack of parties that would like to mediate or peace proposals. We are ready to consider all of them, with the exception of Zelensky peace plan, because it's totally unrealistic, because it says that we need to go back to 1991, the situation in 1991 when Crimea was part of Ukraine. It's not realistic. It's just PR. It's you know, you have to take into account the geopolitical realities. It's just PR. It's just a provocation. But other countries have proposed more realistic, I would say, initiatives. It's not about, we are ready to consider. The problem is that we don't see any intention from Ukraine to discuss any kind of peace initiatives. You remember what happened with the initiative of Pak Prabowo. Immediately, our response was, we will consider. From Ukrainian side, immediately, no. Like 15 minutes later, no. We reject. So it's not about Russia, it's about the position of Ukraine. And may I also remind you that last year in April, after several rounds of negotiations with Turkey, we were on the brink of in Turkey with Ukraine. We were on the brink of signing an agreement with Ukraine that would have resolved this conflict, that stopped the military phase of this conflict. Everything was already agreed, but Boris Johnson, at that time he was Prime Minister of Great Britain, came to Kiev, and immediately after that Zelensky ordered his delegation to walk out from the negotiations. So the West is not interested in stopping this conflict, and Ukrainians are just instruments. They are not independent in their policies. They just take the orders from Brussels and Washington. Mainly. So for the West, Ukraine is an instrument to attack Russia and to weaken Russia, because we present an existential threat to them. We doubt and we don't agree with their claim to global dominance. We don't agree that just one country and a small group of countries has the right to tell the whole world what to do and how to live, and also be prosperous because they just take cheap natural resources from the whole world, actually, and then process it and then sell expensive goods to these countries. And actually they're trying to prevent the developing countries or the global south to have their own industries, not just to be source of cheap natural resources for them. So that's what we are. Actually, we protest. We don't agree. That's why they want to weaken us and destroy Russia. And Ukraine is just an